Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of my tutorial series. In this episode we are going to be going over making a targeting system, so let's see what that looks like here. As you can see, as we look at this guy over here, it automatically targets to him, and when we look away, it goes away. Awesome, so let's get into how to make it. So first things first, we're going to need a new interface, and we're just going to call this, we're going to go over to Blueprints, Interface, and we're going to say BPI target interface. This is going to have three functions here. One's going to be called register target. Another is going to be called unregister target. And the last one's going to be called find target. And all these are going to be taking an actor as an input. We're going to just say target to find. This one's going to be called target, and up here is going to be called, actually we should probably go with actor for this so it doesn't get confusing, because when you call interfaces they will have also a thing called target. So we're just going to compile, save that. Now we're going to go over to our game mode here. This is where we're going to store all the targets. So we're going to open the full blueprint editor here, and we're going to create a new variable called an actor. So we're going to be using the game mode because it persists in the level. If you wanted something that persists across the levels, you would need a game instance, but since these are targets and they only exist in the level, and once you start up a new level you're going to have a new set of targets, we're going to keep them all in this game mode here. That'll keep one nice place for us to reference it to. And so the actor array, we're going to call this just targets. And then we're going to come over to class settings here, and we're going to implement this interface. So target BPI target interface. That's what we want. And last thing, actually, when we find target, we're going to say return a boolean, and we're going to say target found. Awesome. So now we have these three interface functions down here. So we're just going to implement them all. Implement, and this one we're going to find the graph. So in our register target, if we go back to this, we're going to take our target array and we're going to add. And we're just going to say when we register the target, add it to the array. And likewise, when we unregister the target, we're just going to remove it from the array. So just like that. And then when we find the target, all we're going to do is, similarly, we're just going to get our array and we're going to say find item. And if we hover over the little green thing here, it's going to say the item was found at, or -1 if not found. So if the target is found, then this should not equal -1. So we're going to say not equal to -1. Perfect. Now we can get into actually implementing the targets inside of the actors. So we're going to take our little enemy guy here, as well as the turret. Where's this guy right here? And we're just going to say on begin play, and we're going to get our game mode and register target. And then if we had a death, we'd put the unregistered target on the death. And for the actor, we can just say self. And same thing with the turret. I'm just going to copy this. So when we go over here to the turret, where's this guy? Right here. We can just come up here and find begin play again and do the exact same thing. Awesome. Clean this up a little. Perfect. So now we need to actually implement the finding in the third person character. So let's go over to the third person character here, and we're going to go to the event graph, and similarly we are going to find the begin play function, and if it doesn't exist we're going to create one. So on begin play, Actually, first things first, we need to make a player controller. So if we go to our game mode and we go to class settings, you'll see that we're just using the default player controller. If I click find, you'll see that it's in the engine C++ classes. So we're going to get back out of this. We're going to go into our content, and we're going to store everything related to the player with the player. So I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and it's going to be called third person player controller. And then here we can just save this for now, and then lastly we want to go back into our player, and we're going to get player controller, and we're going to cast to third person player controller. And we can save this reference, and then we can also get our game mode and then cast to third person game mode and save that as a reference. So generally casting is it's very heavy, so this is why we do it in begin play and we only save the references. So in the future we can just reference these rather than having to cast every single time. So I'm just going to say this is our player controller, and this one right here is our game mode. Cool. So next what we're going to do is we are going to set timer by event. And we're going to do a custom event here, and this is going to be find target tick. And then we're going to promote our variable, our time variable, to a variable. We're going to say find target tick rate. And compile save, set it to looping true. We can promote our timer to a variable, and we can say find target timer. So in our tick here, what we're going to do is we're going to create two functions. One's going to be called find new target, and the next one is going to be check visibility to target. So for the find new target, we go back to that. What we're going to do is we're going to do a sphere trace for objects. And we're going to get the follow camera. We're going to say get world location, and that can be the start. And then we're going to get the forward vector, and we're going to multiply this by a float, and we're going to give ourselves some space, and we're going to promote this to a variable, and we can call this variable trace distance, and we can set it to some arbitrary number like 3000 is probably pretty good. The further you go with this, the further you'll be able to see targets. And then with the radius here, we're going to promote this to a variable as well, and we're going to call this trace radius. And this will be how wide it is on the screen, and we can demo this really quickly. So I actually made a mistake here. We need to hook up the get world location plus a vector. We need to add in this forward vector multiply right here, and that should give us a proper distance. And then for the actors to ignore, we're just going to ignore all our followers just in case they might get in the way here. Alright, and object types. We need to make an array of object types. That's what it's complaining about, and we're going to say pawns only. So we're going to split this up into two sections. Just because the world might get in the way since it's such a big trace, we're just going to, and it's a big sphere trace, right? We don't want to do a multi-sphere trace, otherwise you're going to hit a bunch of objects and then you're going to have to iterate on that. It's going to be much less performant, so we're just going to do one big trace for pawns only, and the first one it hits, we're going to see if we can draw a line between the player and it. And if we can, then you have the target. And if you can't, then it's hidden behind a wall or something else. So, off of this, we're going to just do a branch here, and then we are going to have some new outputs. Actually, not inputs, we need outputs. And this is going to say found target for the boolean, and the next one is going to just be an actor, and this is going to be found actor. and we can put like a little question mark here so we have it set up like a boolean properly. So if that's false, we're just going to set that to false, and then if it's true, then we're going to copy this and make a new one. We're going to say hit actor is the found actor, and then we're going to get our game mode. Get GM, I think is what we called it. Right here. Yep. And we're going to say find target. And we're going to see, is this guy that we just hit as the pawn, did he register himself with the game mode? And will he be a targetable entity? We can just plug that in right there. Awesome. And we're going to set this to true. Or actually, we can just plug in the target found. Cool. So that's all done there. Next, we need to set up the check visibility to target. So this one's going to be a little simpler. This one will take a parameter here. And this is going to be target to trace to. And this one we're just going to do a line trace. Line trace by channel. And we're going to use the visibility channel. So if it is visible, we will be able to tell. And then we're going to say get actor location. And then we're going to also just copy this, paste this, and have it as the self. And then actors to ignore, we want to make sure we don't hit this other actor since we're tracing between the two. And just for good measure, we can also add self. You do ignore self already, but doesn't hurt. And then we're going to have another output here, and then we're going to say, it's going to be a boolean. This is going to say is visible with another question mark here. And so if we did not hit anything, then it is visible. Cool. So now we can go back into actually implementing this on the tick event right here. So find target tick, and our tick rate we're going to want to set to 0.25. You can set this lower if you'd like, but I think 4 times a second is probably a pretty good number. It doesn't need to update super quick. The only thing that should update quick, since the people can actually like truly see it, would be how it updates on the screen, but we'll get to that. So this one I'm just going to leave at 0.25. So off of find target tick, we're going to find new target, and that's going to do that trace in the front again for us. And we're going to have a branch here. So if we found a target, then we're going to check the visibility to the target. And if that is true, we do another branch here. Then we can see, we can do one more branch, and we can actually, we're going to need to create a variable for this. So promote to variable. This is going to be called target. And we can call it actually current target. Alright, so if the target is equal to the current target, then what we can do here is we can just plug that in. So if it's equal to the current target, then we don't need to do anything, but if it is not equal, then we need to set our current target to this target, and then what we can do is we need some event dispatchers. So we're going to create 2. So we're going to say new target, and another one, target lost. So on new target, what we're going to need to do is we're going to create a new variable for the input, and we're going to say this is going to be of type actor. This is going to be called new target, and we're just going to call this event dispatcher right here. And it looks like we're going to need to compile, save, and update this. We're going to refresh the node, and we're just going to plug that in. So if there is no found target, that means there's nothing in front of us that could be considered a target. And if we can't see the target, then that also means that technically there's nothing in front of the player that they can see that would be considered a target. So for both of these, we're just going to call target lost. We're going to compile and save that. And we should be all done with the player. The last thing we're probably going to have to do here is pick one of these meshes. We'll say the sphere on this one, and we're going to say collision to pawn. And same thing with this little tracker guy. We're going to have his collision set to pawn, so that way we can actually collide with something. Alright, and now we need to actually make the UI for this. So we're going to go back into our blueprints folder. We're going to create a new folder here. This one's going to be called UI. We're going to create a new user interface. It's going to be called BPUI underscore, and let's call it targeting UI. And then we're going to create a new user interface as well. This is going to be called target icon. So for the target icon, we're going to set custom for its viewport size. We'll do 30 by 30. And then we'll put an image here. With the size of 30 by 30. We'll actually do 20 by 20. And we're going to set its rotation to 0.5. We need to set it right in the middle. So I think 10 or 5 by 5 right there. And we need to rotate it. We need to rotate it 45 degrees so it lines up just like that. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to get our image, set brush. That's going to be on construct. And then we're going to split this or make a slate brush. And the tint, we're going to make a new tint. And for the specified color, we're going to promote this to a variable, and this is going to say color. And we're going to set instance editable, and we're going to expose on spawn here. So that way we can control it when we actually instance this. So now we're going to go back to our targeting UI. And in here, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new variable, and this is going to be called player controller, and we're going to just cast to player controller here. You don't need the third person. It's better to cast as low as you can, so that way in the future if we ever create stuff, so we're just going to leave it at the default player controller rather than the third person player controller we created. And we're going to create a widget. And this new widget we create is going to be of class target icon. And its color we can promote to a variable here. And you can set this to be whatever color you want. For this tutorial I like blue, so we're going to do blue. And you can set its opacity maybe a little lower, so we're going to set the alpha to 0.8. And then the owning player is going to be that player controller we just created. Also make sure you set your player controller to instance editable and expose on spawn. And then we're going to promote this to a variable. This is going to be called the target icon. And we're going to add it to the viewport. Perfect. So now we need two functions. Found target and lost target. Custom event. Lost target. And also, actually, we might want to set the visibility of the target icon to hidden right at the start. Perfect. So now we're going to need a new variable as well. This one's just going to be of type actor. And this is going to be our target. If we found a target, we're going to take another actor here, and we're going to say found target. And we're just going to set this new target that we just created to the found target. And if we lost the target, then we're going to set it to nothing. And for both of these, we're going to change the visibility of the target icon. So we can do that. We can drag this in the middle. We can do that. So if we lost target, then it's going to be set to hidden, and if we found the target, it's going to be set to visible. Awesome. So we're done with that. Now we can do the last part of this, which is the tick event. So if the target is valid, the little question mark here, then what we're going to do is we're going to get the world location, get actor location, and we're going to say project world to screen. And our player is going to be our player controller again, and player viewport relative is true. We're going to break our screen position, and we're going to, if you remember correctly, we set its size to 30 by 30, so we're going to subtract 15 from both sides. And you can adjust its location on the screen. If it doesn't line up perfectly, I would adjust these two numbers in your example. And we're going to do set position in viewport. And what we can just do here is plug in these variables. So screen position x minus 15 for the y. And the target is going to be this target icon. Now we need to actually add this to the screen in the first place. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our player controller now. And in the player controller, we are going to get our character. So we don't need tick. We're going to get player pawn. And we're going to say cast to third person character. And promote this to a variable. And we're going to say player pawn. And then we're going to create the widget. And this can be the, what do we call it? BPUI, targeting UI. And it's going to need a player controller, so it's going to be us, since we're in the player controller. And then we're going to promote this to a variable as well. This is going to be called targeting UI. And we're going to add this to the viewport. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our player pawn and we're going to say bind event to target, new target, and then bind event to target lost. And so what these two are doing is, if you remember correctly, in our player controller we created these event dispatchers. And so what happens is, anytime we call this, you see how we're calling new target here, that means it's going to, any event that we tie here, it's going to execute all the code beneath that. And when we call target lost as well, it's going to execute any code that we tie to this event here. And you can set this up in anything that has a reference to the player. It's very handy. So we're going to create a new custom event here, and this is going to be, say, new or target found. And this one's going to have a new custom event, and it's going to say target lost. So if we lost a target, and then for both of these we're going to get our targeting UI, and we're going to say, we're going to come back over here, we're going to say, okay, found target, lost target, found target, and we can just plug in this new target into that, and lost target is going to be lost target. Awesome. So let's double check everything here. All right, and let's double check our variables that we created. So it looks like we need a trace radius. We're going to set this to 100. If you want this super wide and how it fits the screen, you can go up to like 300, for example. And current target should be empty. So let's see here. Alright, so I found the bug. We forgot to actually set our player controller to the third person player controller. So we're just going to go into our world settings and then our game mode, and we're going to set our player controller to this third person player controller. And now, when we hover over, you should see the blue screen. And let me get rid of the debug for you guys. So check visibility to target, find new target. It's this one. Draw debug type for duration. If you ever wanted to debug and you wanted to see the size of your trace, you can always set it to for duration. And now we have it so it hovers over the target. And even though it's clipping through the player here, since we have it set up to not collide, it does have that distance, right? So, but yeah, everything works perfectly. If you guys want some ideas for how to expand on this, you can have it so instead of this timer here, you can have it so when you push a button, it'll call this entire chain. And you might want to remove this call target loss and then bind this function alone to a different key. So you can say like, when you push a button, find the target, check the visibility and all that, and set it to the current target. And then when you push another button, that targeting will disappear. So that way they can use this button to like update their target, and then use this button to clear all targets. And if you wanted one button for all, you can just leave this the exact same way it is, and then bind this to like key E or something like that. But that's all. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any tutorial requests, let me know in the Discord or down below in the comment section. If you like this video, please leave a like or comment and subscribe. And next up, we're going to implement a new follower type into this targeting system. This tutorial was a request by someone in my Discord, and he wanted it so a follower would go like above one of the target's heads. So this is the first step to that, and the next will be implementing a new follower type. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and hope you guys have a great day. Take care.